There's only one word that describes Ayrton's style, and that is fast. He would take the car beyond its design capabilities. He would brake later, fly into these corners where the car was just over the edge, and somehow he could dance a dance with that car to where it stayed on the track.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Everything that is and that you can imagine, God once imagined. He knew all of it before any of it came to be. Everything, Colossians writes, the Apostle Paul writes, was made through him. Everything was made for him. Everything, including Formula One. God knew that there would be a time in the evolution of humanity where humankind would invent the wheel. It was out of God's divine brilliance that Roman culture at one point came up with the idea, the early idea of a crankshaft. God knew all of those souls and patent holders who came up with ideas in the 18th century for how to harness the power of small explosions. God knew that in the 19th century, Jean-Joseph Etienne Lenoir would come up with the first official internal combustion engine. Henry Ford's engineering mind is made in the image of God. And God must have smiled knowingly when Henry Ford noted that auto racing began 5 minutes after the second car was built. God was there when his spirit was hovering over the face of the earth and automotive racing was born. He watched it grow as a toddler, learning and understanding aerodynamics and fuel, tire, and chassis technology. It was through the wisdom of God that they learned, and we learned as a human culture, to get more and more horsepower out of smaller and smaller engines. The flourishing of technology was done in obedience to the call of our Heavenly Father. And surely God delights in the joy that this sport brings, especially today in Montreal. To drivers, to constructors, and vicariously to those amongst us who are fans and will now be fans after being at church and seeing God's glory there. A driver, nowadays especially, it's almost like they're wearing a car. They're putting on a vehicle as though it's an article of clothing. And they really are engaging in a high-tech dance. They're becoming one with the world's best automotive technology, using every bit of their human capacity and hand-eye coordination and high-speed imagination and courage and physical strength and endurance, and for an hour and a half or 2 hours staying focused while experiencing huge accelerating and decelerating and cornering to the point of losing your breath G-forces. God saw the beauty and the mystery and the majesty of this part of his world-creating plan, a human being and a whole bunch of human beings fully alive inside a world-leading piece of technology. Human beings on the edge of what a human being can do and be and dare to be. Humanity developing over centuries and millennia technology to get to the point where we can actually do this and keep this car on the road at 350 kilometers per hour. Humanity obeying the commandment in Genesis that called us to be fruitful and multiply and fill the world with people and culture and society and all the fruits of those things. God saw the coming together of fully flourishing human beings and fully flourishing human culture, his God-breathed handiwork, material handiwork in this world and in this universe, hitting the pavement at over 300 kilometers per hour. God saw it all. And I believe God looked at it and he said, "This is good. This is very good." Until the crash.
That day, I suddenly realized that I was no longer driving it conscious, and I was in a different dimension for me. The circuit for me was a tunnel, which I was just going, and I realized I was well beyond my conscious understanding.
Ayrton was multiple seconds into the lead, had the race in hand, with only a handful of laps to go, and he received a radio message that said, "You are so far in the lead, slow down."
Ayrton Senna has hit the wall. Ayrton Senna is out of his car and out of this race.
Ayrton Senna goes out of the lead of the Monaco Grand Prix.
Absolutely incredible.
He never wanted to beat me, he wanted to humiliate me. He wanted to show the people that he was much stronger, much better, and that was his weakness.
His post-accident emotion was pure anger with himself, and he couldn't cope with it at all. He actually walked back to his apartment, and it was 2 or 3 hours before he surfaced.
I just came to so close to perfection that weekend that I relaxed. And I opened windows for mistakes. And I learned that there. And since then, I progressively come back because I lost some confidence at that moment. And progressively I fight back. And I got much stronger after that incident. Somehow I got closer to God. And that has been very important for me as a man.
In the book of Genesis, chapter 11, there's a story that's told about a society whose flourishing and growing human culture developed new brick technology, which enabled them to build and imagine a huge tower, a great city that they were going to build. A quote from that chapter and that story says, "Come, let's build ourselves a city and a tower that reaches heaven. Let's make ourselves famous so we won't be scattered here and there across the earth." They were in a groove way beyond their conscious understanding. And in that place of themselves being filled with themselves, they became unaware of their human frailty and limits. They started to believe their own press clippings, and we succumbed to our pride and hubris, thinking that we could be God. And God, seeing that, garbled their language. God, seeing that, allows the laws of physics to apply when you're taking that corner too fast, leading to a crash. God, seeing that, even though He loved you enough to give you free will to choose, even if you choose poorly, let us live with our consequences. And Formula One fell and falls terribly short of what F1 could be. Drivers make unsafe moves all the time. Senna got called for that again and again in his insane, crazy driving technique. Others cut drivers off or make dangerous content and send their opponents into the wall. The politics of the sport are terrible. Politics in sport can be terrible, period. But from what I've read about Formula One, so much money, so much bad politics. The technology, they have to set rules in order to keep certain limits so that everyone can have the same fair playing ground and a freedom to work within the limits, but everybody's always pushing the limits and slipping at the next new piece of invisible technology into the car to get that slight edge and to beat out the opponent. And historically, not so much in the last 18, 19 years, way too many drivers have died as a result of the fall. And a lot of race fans have died as a result of that fall. We push beyond our human limits, and we go too fast, and we go flying off the track.